All right, good evening, El Segundo. We're calling this meeting to order. This is a regularly scheduled meeting of the City Council, November 17, 2020 at 6 p.m. And we will be conducting, or we are conducting this evening's meeting in a virtual setting. Council members and staff are participating from remote locations, and Deputy City Clerk Mona Schilling is in chamber to accommodate public communication. Members of the public may view and listen to the meeting live this evening on Spectrum Channel 3 and 22, on AT&T UVerse Channel 99, or on El Segundo TV at youtube.com. Please remember to mute your mics when not speaking, and council members, if making a motion or a second on a motion, please do so using your last name in order for the clerk to hear and report correctly. And I want to thank, it looks like Pastor McKenna's on. Thank you for being here this evening. We have Pastor McKenna to lead us in the invocation. He's from the Bridge Church, and that'll be followed by the Pledge of Allegiance by Council Member Nichols. So Pastor McKenna, I'll turn it over to you, please.
Great. Thank you. Always a privilege to be able to come and pray for our city and all of you. Let's pray. Heavenly Father, thank you so much, Lord God, as we come again today. And Lord, I'm reminded, Lord, of our officials, our city officials, our council, our mayor, Lord God, those that run our city, that protect our city. And Lord, I'm thankful for them. Lord, you tell us to give thanks in all situations. And Lord, in the midst of difficult times, difficult seasons, Lord God, we're thankful for how you protect us, how you watch over us, how you cover our city, the city of El Segundo. And so, Lord, as we come this evening, Lord God, Lord, thank you that you bring wisdom and discernment to our city council as they make decisions. Lord, thank you again for our firefighters, our police officers, Lord God, our school teachers, administrators that are having to deal with things that they didn't realize were going to happen. Lord, and I thank you that you've just watched over all of them as well. Lord, thank you that you continue to just cover every aspect of our city, Lord God, and Lord, protecting it, Lord, from the coronavirus, Lord God, to watching over the citizens, Lord, those that maybe have lost jobs, Lord God, those that are feeling marginalized, Lord God, those that are dealing with issues and problems because of COVID or turning, Lord God, to things like alcohol and drugs. Lord, I pray that you would cover them and watch over them. And so, Lord, tonight we give thanks to you for all that you do for us. And we pray that you would just bless this time, Lord. We pray this in your name. Amen.
Thank you, sir. Much appreciated. Okay, Councilman Nichol. Scott, you're muted, bud.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you. If you can see a flag from where you're standing, face that. If not, please face City Hall. Ready, begin. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Councilman Nichol. Madam Clerk, would you please do roll call for us?
Councilmember Nichol.
Here.
Sorry, I went out of order. Councilmember Giroux.
Here.
Councilmember Perstuck.
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Pimentel.
Here.
And Mayor Boyles.
Here.
All right, everyone is there.
All right, thank you. Now is the time and place for public communications. Madam Deputy City Clerk Schilling, is there anyone in chamber wishing to speak?
There's no one here this evening to speak. Chamber.
Okay, thank you, ma'am. Have you received any public communications, written public communications?
None.
Okay, thank you very much. All right, we are on to special presentations. And first off, we're going to have Council Member Giroux read the Spark of Love, and Chief Donovan of the Fire Department is here to accept.
All right, proclamation. Whereas on March 4th, 2020, Governor Newsom proclaimed a statewide emergency because of COVID-19. On March 11th, 2020, the World Health Organization declared COVID-19 to be a pandemic. On March 13th, 2020, the President declared a national emergency. On March 16th, 2020, the City of El Segundo declared a local emergency and ratified by the El Segundo City Council on March 17th, 2020. And whereas, in an effort to provide for children who otherwise might not experience the joy of the holiday season, the City of El Segundo Fire Department, along with other Southland fire agencies, has participated in the Spark of Love program for the past 28 years and has been a collection site for toys and food items donated during the holidays. But due to the pandemic, this year's toy drive is going online and transitioning to an all virtual effort by partnering with myregistry.com. And whereas the ever upward spiraling cost of living burdens disadvantaged and displaced families who may not be able to give gifts during the holiday season without help from the Spark of Love program, the true holiday spirit is reflected in unselfish giving, and our thoughts and hearts go out to those less fortunate than ourselves. And whereas in the past, with the help of civic-minded citizens who live and work in our community, hundreds of toys plus food items have been collected and distributed to children and families in El Segundo and other South Bay cities. Now, therefore, the mayor and members of the City Council of the City of El Segundo, California, do hereby proclaim November 9th, 2020 through December 18th, 2020 as the Spark of Love virtual toy drive. And I think I need to go on the bottom here. Sorry, I missed. The community is encouraged to support this holiday program by contributing toys virtually through www.myregistry.com and /wishlist/ Spark of Love Los Angeles. And during the period of November 9th through December 18th, 2020. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Drew and City Council. On behalf of the El Segundo Fire Department, once again, we want to thank our community for the ongoing support of those less fortunate. Every year, we have put up boxes that are quickly filled with toys and food, and the community shows an incredible spirit of giving for those less fortunate. And especially this year with COVID-19 having the economic impact it has, with also wildfires that have struck the Southern California region, we recognize that this year's Spark of Love is going to be an important opportunity to give for those that are less fortunate. And what's unique about this toy drive every year that we've been holding it is it's the largest such toy drive in the nation. And partnering with ABC7, Southern California Fire Departments, including El Segundo Fire Department, and Subaru as the main sponsor this year. They've changed because of COVID, and as was mentioned, it's completely online. We'll put more information up on the website and put it out in social media, but we encourage El Segundo residents that are interested in participating. They can go online and buy a toy by going to myregistry.com/gift list /Spark of Love. You can also text to give. You can text SPARK, SPARK, to 24365. That's texting SPARK to 24365. Or you can go to the website and click on the fire department page, and we'll have a link to Spark of Love. And we strongly encourage our residents to donate as they've done in the past. We certainly will miss the interactions with our community every year with the toys and donations and food, but we'll look forward to doing that again next year once we get past this pandemic. And again, my thanks and appreciation for the council and for our community for the support. Thank you.
Thank you, Chief Donovan, and thank you, Councilmember Giroux. Well done. All right, next up we have a proclamation, which is the United Against Hate Week proclamation. And I believe we have a couple members of our newly established Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Committee that are going to be here to accept this with the help of Barbara Voss. So first I'll read hi Shad, how are you? Thanks for being here. Is Ken here too? Is Ken Chancey here too?
I did not see him. I think he might have had an issue.
Okay, I'll give me. I'm going to read the proclamation, and I think Barbara's going to introduce you. Thank you for being on. Proclamation reads as this. Whereas LA County is home to a diverse population of more than 10 million residents, including Alaska Natives, American Indians, Asian Pacific Islanders, Black, Latinx, and White. United Against Hate Week, November 30th through December 6th, 2020, will celebrate LA County's diverse history, culture, and traditions while educating residents on the importance of supporting social justice inclusion, and safety for all. And whereas the goal of this week is to draw local residents, students, school, civic, faith, and business leaders together to raise awareness about how to stop hate and promote inclusion. United Against Hate Week recognizes the county's diversity, strengthens partnerships to help address hardships faced by victims of hate acts, and elevates every community and the unique ways they make the county a better, more inclusive, and welcoming place to live. And whereas United Hate Week symbolizes El Segundo's dedication to preventing and opposing hate and intolerance in our community, and educating residents on the importance of compassion and cooperation as key strategies for unlocking, understanding, and embracing differences. Now, therefore, the mayor and members of the City Council of the City of El Segundo, California, hereby proclaim support for the week of November 30th through December 6th, 2020, as United Against Hate Week, and express our dedication in preventing and opposing hate and intolerance in our community. So thank you. And Barbara Voss, I'll turn it over to you.
Thank you, Mayor. Good evening, members of council. I just wanted to introduce Shad McFadden for those of you who have not had the opportunity to meet him yet. He is a member of our Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Committee, and this committee has now had 2 meetings. And at the last meeting, Shad was selected as the chair. So congratulations to Shad. Shad comes from the Midwest, and he's lived on the East Coast, and he moved to the Los Angeles area about 21 years ago. He's lived in El Segundo for 12 years. He works at AT&T in video and video production, and he manages project managers who work on the DirecTV and AT&T products. He is on the AYSO board. He's a leader in the business community. He's a leader in the community here in El Segundo. And with that, I'd just like to turn it over to Shad. And congratulations, Shad, on being named the chair of the DEI.
Thank you very much, Barbara. And thank you, City Council, for helping us get this thing started. Barbara and Scott are being super helpful. We're not as good with the Robert's Rules of Orders as you guys are, but we're getting there slowly. I just want to thank the council and thank you, Mayor Boyles, for reading that. You know, it really covers, you know, the thing you read, the proclamation covers a lot of different groups. I think it's really telling about this group. I found a clip on their website that says the goal of United Against Hate Week is to bring communities together, to learn from each other, acknowledge local concerns, and seek solutions together. And when I saw that, I feel like that is exactly the reason this DEI committee was formed. So I think it's a really good fit. I think it's awesome that, you know, like Barbara said, we're 2 meetings in, we're still a little wet behind the ears, but we're getting excited to, you know, get out there and make some real change, talking to the community. So thank you guys so much. I really, you know, we all support the proclamation. We think it's a really good thing for the community. So thank you guys.
Thank you very much, Mr. McFadden. Not only is he on the board, I believe he's the regional director of AYSO, if I'm not mistaken. So you got a couple big jobs there. All right, thank you, sir. Appreciate it. Thank you, Barbara. Okay, let's see. We've now got an update from Chief Donovan on COVID-19. Chief, I'll turn it back to you.
Yes, sir. I'll be quick. I've got a slide presentation I'd like to show. Cognizant of your time, so I'll get through this pretty quickly. This is as of today. Some of the numbers that we'll present from CDC are today's numbers. They were updated today. In the United States, we had an increase of 151,855 cases, 762 deaths. And what you've been hearing in the news is a pretty substantial increase in widespread community spreading of COVID-19. In California, we saw an increase in 8,743 cases with 36 deaths due to the virus. Los Angeles County, the numbers were not updated as of the timing of this PowerPoint. So as of yesterday, there was an increase in 2,795 cases and 6 deaths. And as I remember talking last time, we're seeing an increase in the number of cases, but the deaths, fortunately, are staying low. What we'll be looking at and trending in the coming weeks is hospitalization. I'll talk about that in a moment with some more slides. As of yesterday in LA County, There was 1,049 hospital admissions. That was an increase of 35. An additional 20 people were put in the ICU and required advanced medical care in the intensive care units. Here in El Segundo, we've had an increase of 1 case. That makes 167 cases. And we have 16 cases. That is that 14-day period where somebody's been first identified as positive with the coronavirus and are still active in our community. If we look and compare to our neighboring jurisdictions, El Segundo has a case rate of 995. If we look at, for instance, Hermosa Beach, comparable community, their case rate is 1,535. Our neighbor to the south, Manhattan Beach, has a case rate of 1,283. Palos Verdes has a case rate of 917. And then you go in a little further east to some of our communities, such as Hawthorne, you see a substantial jump in the number of active cases with a case rate of 2,722. And that's a comparison that shows our community based on the size and population in comparison to our surrounding jurisdictions. So again, although we're seeing an increase in the cases here in El Segundo, our community is doing a good job in taking those preventative actions to slow the spread. We learned yesterday at the governor's press briefing that he's had some changes to the tiered assignment. As of today, starting today, tier assignments may occur any day of the week and may occur more than once a week. If you recall, we were waiting for the data to come out on a Tuesday. The Tuesday data would look back a week. They would compare the 7-day averages. They have, in essence, changed that now. And what they're showing, because of the substantial spread of COVID-19, they're going to allow for an any day of the week change county by county. Counties may be moved back more than one tier. So you could be in orange tier and actually get moved back 2 places to the purple tier, depending on the data that would perhaps support a more intensive intervention. And the state is going to be utilizing the most recent reliable data to complete these assessments. They're looking to get better at the data analysis and putting the data out. Counties will also be required to implement any sector changes the day following the tier announcement. So yesterday, many of the counties in the state were changed, and this is a demonstration of previous week. You can see the state was relatively in the widespread margins in Southern California, San Bernardino, Los Angeles County, and the like. And because of the analytics, now we see a pretty substantial shift. 41 counties are now in the most restrictive tier. 39 counties changed to that more restrictive tier. And so we're seeing a pretty substantial widespread move of COVID-19 throughout the state of California. And all of these changes occurred yesterday. So these counties were required to make their effective changes today. You know, Los Angeles County has always been in the highest tier, the purple tier, widespread. And so there has been relatively unchanged in terms of the requirements that we have here within Los Angeles County. Again, you've seen this slide before. This just demonstrates the analytics that we'll be looking for as it relates to adjusted case rate and test positivity. This is an important factor here, and it will speak to where we look at our bed hospital surge capacity. The R number, which is a indication of how easily the virus spreads from person to person. When we were first giving these presentations really early on in the COVID-19 pandemic, we were seeing R numbers of upwards of 3, meaning one person would infect 3 people. And then as community mitigation efforts began to occur, we began to see the spread reducing and the R number lowering. At one time, I remember providing information to this council indicating that we were below 1%. We were about 0.8%. We're now a little bit above 1% in Los Angeles County. For every person that has COVID-19, 1.22 people will be impacted or infected with the virus. And so we're going to pay pretty close attention to this moving forward. In the South Bay, I want to show a comparison. When we first began our campaign with the governor's office, identifying that El Segundo, if it were carved out, we would be in a tier 3. At that time, our case rate was 2.5. Our test positivity was 2.2 in comparison to the county of Los Angeles. You look at it now, and based on our population and the number of new cases, our case rate is at 10.2, and our test positivity is up at 5%. Again, it's lower than the county, it's lower than the South Bay, but it's higher than what the factors, the metrics that would move us from tier one to tier 2. So we'll be, again, keeping a very close eye on our local metrics. We'll continue to communicate with the county and with the state as we begin to see these metrics drop, hopefully in the near future. The last few slides I want to share with you as it relates to hospital bed availability. The concern is, as you see the cases increase and more people impacted or infected with COVID, there's usually about a 1 to 2 week drag or delay with hospitalizations. And so as we begin to see the increases in the number of COVID, we could potentially see an increase in the number of people going to the hospital and getting admitted. And so this was data that was collected and provided Monday morning. This is based on all Los Angeles County hospital bed availability. The big concern that we have is making sure that we have hospital beds, ICU beds, and ventilators for people that need advanced care. And you'll see that this red line indicates where our current bed capacity is for COVID-19. Early on, you'll remember we increased our capacity. They brought the Navy ship into the port. They had set up some portable hospitals, and we had a higher surge potential back then. Now we're back to a new normal. That's not to say that we can't scale up if need be in the county of Los Angeles with more hospitals. But as it relates right now, this red line indicates our availability. Right now, this is where we are with hospitalizations. If you look at that R effect, that is the number of people that will be impacted or infected with the 1.22 spread, we could see in the next 2 weeks, this spread will increase and more people will be sent to the hospital. But it will still show, for the most part, we should have plenty of hospital bed availability, unlike some of the other states in the nation now that are indicating they're having some surge capacity issues. As it relates to ICU beds, same thing. You'll see here the red line indicates our current hospital bed availability. The white scatter chart indicates the number of people that are admitted to the ICU unit. And again, in the next 2 weeks, we'll be paying close attention to the spread of COVID-19 and if more people are needing hospitalization and ICU. And then finally, ventilation. Because of the advancements in treatment now, ventilators are not used as prevalently as they were in the past. And so as you can see, there's plenty of surge capacity for the need of ventilators moving forward. And so in short, in the next 2 weeks, we'll be paying close attention to this information, but it appears that the County of Los Angeles is in a safe place right now to handle any potential surge in patients admitted to the hospital. I wanted to share with
Chief,
you.
Can I ask one quick question? This
Yes,
is
sir.
Chris. Just a quick question on those graphs. Shouldn't we see if the number of people on the lower line, on all three of these, if the utilization of those beds increases, so if your scatter chart at the bottom goes up, shouldn't the capacity go down? It seems like these are tracing each other almost perfectly. Shouldn't they be inversely related? Like I don't know if I could be reading this wrong.
Yeah, this is a snap in time. So if in a week from now, let's say this line goes up to this level here, the red line will be compacted more, and so we would see a closer comparison with hospital bed availability. Is that answering the question?
I guess so. Yeah, you should almost be reading it diagonally to do prognostication. I see that. Okay.
Some of the good news that you've probably heard in the media is that there is some vaccine news that's coming out. Pfizer, with a company called BioNTech, announced 90% of efficacy on a vaccine. They're now in in the final phases of safety data to the FDA with the hope of getting an FDA emergency authorization by late December. With the Operation Warp Speed, the military will be poised to push out 15 million vaccines. This is a 2-dose administration of the Pfizer vaccine. Moderna yesterday announced the findings of 94.5% efficacy of their vaccine as well. The difference between the two is Pfizer's vaccine needs to be kept at super cool temperatures. Moderna does not require as cold of shipping, and so logistically there's an advantage to Moderna. But quite frankly, both are showing remarkable efficacy, and most of the medical field and those experts are very happy with these results. And so this is our opportunity to begin to vaccinate and get to herd immunity. Additionally, AstraZeneca and Johnson & Johnson are in final clinical phases for vaccine. And again, I apologize. This was a long presentation, and I'm available for any questions. I'll certainly look back to those graphs and provide a little bit more clarity in terms of the depiction, because you're right, it did demonstrate that they were in parallel with each other, and that shouldn't be the case.
Thank you, Chief. Any questions for Chief? Yeah, Councilman Nickel.
Chief, no, don't mean to put you on the spot, but I'm pretty sure we just got an email from LA County while you were speaking.
Yes, sir.
If by chance you could review that during our meeting and potentially come back at the end of the meeting and just kind of give the audience a Reader's Digest as to what LA County is looking to do starting Friday.
I can give you some high level right now if you'd like. This is a press release that was just put out about 20 minutes ago, and it states that effective Friday, November 20th, LA County is going to continue to tighten some of their safeguards. Some of the things that we're going to see is non-essential businesses that are permitted to operate indoors, including retail stores, office, personal care services, will be limited to 25% maximum occupancy. The outdoor patrons of outdoor restaurants, breweries, and wineries will be limited to 50% maximum outdoor capacity. The number of customers at card rooms, mini golf, go-kart, and batting cages will be limited to 50% maximum occupancy. And then services at personal care establishments may only be provided by appointment to customers wearing face covers, by staff members also in face covers. And so this is really new. We're going to follow up first thing tomorrow morning with LA County Public Health. We'll get more direction, and we'll be sure to share this with our community. Sir.
Can you read a little bit lower where it talks about the daily daily counts, and if the daily counts hit certain numbers, it seems like they're forecasting or letting us know that, hey, if daily counts get to X, this is what will happen.
Yeah, okay. On the second page of this, if the 5-day average of cases in the county becomes 4,000 or more, or hospitalizations are more than 1,750 per day, the following restrictions will be added. Outdoor and indoor dining at restaurants, breweries, wineries, and bars will be prohibited, and these businesses will only be able to offer pickup and delivery. So we'll pay very close attention to those metrics. Again, that's cases that become 4,000 or more, or hospitalizations, which are 1,750 per day.
Thank you, Chief.
Thank you, sir.
Thanks for pointing that out, Councilman Nickel, and thank you, Chief. Okay, we're on to item A, procedural motions. Consideration of a motion to read all ordinances and resolutions on the agenda by title only, stating your last name. Someone like to make a motion to read all ordinances and resolutions by title only?
So moved.
Thank you, Councilmember Perstuck. Do you have a second?
Nickel, second.
Thank you. Madam Clerk, would you please take a voice vote?
Yes. Councilmember Giroux,
Yes.
Councilmember Nichol,
Aye.
Councilmember Perstuck,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Pimentel,
Aye.
Mayor Boyles.
Yes,
Okay, pass.
thank you. Consent calendar, items 1 through 7. Any polls this evening? No. Okay, do I have a motion to approve items 1 through 7 on the consent calendar?
Giroux, so moved.
Thank you, sir. Do I have a second?
Perstuck, second.
Pimentel, second. Here's
She beat you to it. Thank you, ma'am. Okay, Madam Clerk, please take a voice vote.
Councilmember Giroux,
Yes.
Councilmember Nichol,
Aye.
Councilmember Perstuck,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Pimentel,
Yes.
and Mayor Boyles.
Yes.
Okay, consent 5-0.
Thank you. We have a public hearing. Item number 8, conduct a public hearing, adopt a resolution, waive first reading, and introduce an ordinance amending development agreement number DA03-01, the 8th amendment, and conditions of approval for the Plaza, El Segundo, and the Point Development Project to increase the allowed percentage of non-sales tax generating uses to 40%. This is a time and place here to fix for a public hearing regarding the resolution and the other items I just mentioned. City Clerk, was proper notice of the hearing given in a timely manner?
Yes, it was.
Great. Has any written communication been received regarding the public hearing?
No.
Okay. And let's see here. Mr. Mitnick will make the presentation.
Sorry about that. I'm going to turn it over to Sam Lee, I believe.
Thank you.
Yes, good evening, Mayor Boyles, members of the council. While Paul Samaras will be doing the majority of the presentation, but while he's setting up, I just wanted to point out that there's been an ongoing trend in changes to traditional retail throughout the country. The request for you tonight is request by Federal Realty to increase the amount of non-sales square footage in the Plaza and the Point. They're requesting a minor increase at the Point, go from 35% of non-sales generating square footage to 40%, and in a larger request at the Plaza to match what's being done at the Point. So with that, I want to introduce Paul Samaras, and as the from the applicant side, from Federal Realty, Stuart McDonald, who's the Vice President of Regional Development, is here to speak on Federal's behalf, and also Jeff Kreshek, who's the Senior Vice President of West Coast Leasing. So with that, Paul Samaras to the presentation.
Good evening, Mayor Boyles and fellow council members. As Sam mentioned, the request before you is for an amendment to the development agreement and the conditions of approval that affect the Plaza El Segundo and the Point development project. A quick word about the property itself. This is an aerial of the subject property. It is located at the northeast intersection of Rosecrans Avenue and Pacific Coast Highway. The property is located in the city's C4 zone, which is the city's regional commercial zone. And just for your knowledge, to the north of the property is M1 light industrial zoning, and to the west is the Chevron refinery in the M2 heavy industrial zone. And then to the east is the mixed use south zone. And to the south is the Manhattan Beach and the Manhattan Village Center. The subject site is approximately 52 acres in size, and the buildings in the shopping centers are approximately 500,000 square feet in size. The uses there, which Sam alluded to, are primarily retail sales, but they also include a grocery store, some service uses, fitness uses, general office, and some medical uses and others. When the development was originally approved in 2005, it was intended to be an important source of sales tax revenue for the city. and to help diversify the city's revenue sources, which at the time relied primarily on the defense industry, Chevron, and related businesses. As Sam mentioned, again, the subject request involves specifically the topic of sales tax generating versus non-sales tax generating uses, or in other words, retail sales uses and non-retail sales uses. The applicant, as Sam mentioned, would like to increase the proportion of non-retail uses at these two centers. Because this center was intended originally to be a retail center primarily, the project approvals, the development agreement and the conditions of approval contain a maximum limit on the amount of non-retail tenants that it can have. And that's measured as a percentage of the total building area. So the table on this slide shows the existing ratios, the current limits on types of uses, and the change proposed by the applicant. So what is allowed today is for the Plaza El Segundo Center, up to 20% of the building space can be occupied by non-sales tax generating uses, non-retail uses. And for the Point, that percentage limit is 35%. The applicant is proposing to increase that percentage for both Plaza El Segundo and the Point to 40%. The applicant, in order to substantiate this request, submitted a report by Cosmont Companies, which you received in your packet and is discussed in the staff report. The basic conclusions of this Cosmont report are that nationally, online internet sales are gradually displacing brick and mortar retail sales. That is also evident locally, as the city's sales tax revenue has been declining gradually over the last several years. The traditional retail sector is evolving, and this trend is likely to continue. And of course, the COVID pandemic has actually boosted this trend in the last 6 to 8 months. As a result of these trends, shopping centers, including Plaza El Segundo, have tried to adapt to the trends. And one of the ways to adapt has been for retail centers to kind of change the mix of uses and to move from being purely retail to mixed use or lifestyle centers that people visit for multiple purposes, whether it is shopping, working, or entertainment. And this is exactly what Plaza El Segundo has been doing for the last few years, and intends to continue to do so if the requested amendment is approved by the council. We just want to let you know that the Cosmont report was peer-reviewed by another financial company that was hired by city staff. And that company did confirm these general findings in the Cosmont report. Of course, city staff have been aware of these larger trends in the retail sector, and we are also in agreement with the conclusions of the Cosmont report. The Planning Commission held a public hearing regarding this particular request on October 22nd. And at the conclusion of the public hearing, the Commission voted to recommend approval of the proposed amendments. So in conclusion, staff believes that the proposed amendments to the development agreement and the conditions of approval for the shopping center will benefit the shopping center in that it'll help owners to fill vacant spaces, and this in turn will benefit the city by increasing employment, business tax revenue, and stabilizing the city's sales tax revenues. So we recommend that the City Council adopt the resolution in your packet approving an amendment to the project's conditions of approval, introduce an ordinance approving the amendment to the development agreement, and schedule a second reading for your meeting on December 1st. That concludes our presentation. I just want to also mention that the applicant has a presentation to make as well, whenever you're ready to hear from the applicant.
All right, thank you, Mr. Samaras. The public hearing is now open for public input, and we're going to first turn to the applicants, and I'm going to turn it over to Federal to determine who's going to speak first. I see Mr. Kreshik there, but who would like to go first from the Federal side?
Stuart McDonald's going to start for us.
Okay,
Yep.
thanks, sir.
And I'm just going to take a moment to share screen here. So I'm going to jump right into that. Give me a moment here. I'm not quite as deft as staff at flipping quickly. I'm presuming everyone can hear me okay. Is that correct?
Yes, loud and clear.
Okay, great. And you can see my screen.
We see El Segundo
We see your
Federal
calendar.
Oh, jeez. All right. That's not working. All right, stop share. Apologies here.
Mr. Mayor, while he's working on that, would you permit me to ask staff a question?
Yeah.
Oh,
Looks like he's
let's see
pulling
if
it
he's
up right
got
now.
it here.
Yeah.
Is this, you know what? I'm not seeing it.
There we go.
Full screen mode. Is that better?
No, not yet. We have a dark gray screen.
Okay, that is frustrating. We were able to do this easily in the last presentation. Bear with me here.
Stuart, why don't you let me try to do it?
Yeah, if you can.
Okay, you got it. Just
While he's pulling that up, Councilman Nickel, you want to ask your question, staff, please?
Yeah.
Scott, we can't hear you.
No, sorry about that.
There you go.
Mr. Samaras, with this proposed change to the 60/40, that would not preclude this or prevent this property owner from going back to more retail versus office if the trend was to shift, would it?
No, it would not preclude them from doing that. They just have a sort of a maximum limit on the non-retail, but they can remain below that and have more retail.
So theoretically, they could have 100% retail.
Correct.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure. Thank you.
Stuart, if you stop sharing your screen, I can share mine.
Okay. I really apologize for this.
Mr. Samaras, this is Chris Pimentel. If I can follow up while we're getting set up, I think that's an important question, given that in 10 years from now, the Park Place extension will likely be completed, and the footprint and the commercial reality on the ground may change. So we do have some flexibility there. What's the city's ability to repeal the amendment if we think that it is more advantageous to us in terms of tax revenue to make it a different retail mix?
If I may, the project approvals or what's involved here is a development agreement between the city and the property owner. So if the city would like to make changes to the development agreement in the future, it would have to do that sort of in a mutually, sort of agreeable manner. They would have, both parties would have to agree to that. I hope that answers your question.
It does. Thank you.
All right, we see your screen now. You're good.
All right.
Okay. Apologies for that.
Okay.
We're going to start with the first slide, Jeff.
Yep.
Which is number 1. Honorable Mayor Boyles and council members. My name is Stuart McDonald of Federal Realty, and I'm joined this evening by my colleague, Jeffrey Kreshik. We were here a few years ago, as Paul mentioned, to discuss these same properties, and we're here again tonight because the conditions of the retail market we outlined have persisted and actually worsened. We've read and agreed with planning staff's report and conclusions, as well as planning commission's recommendation of approval. So we'll make our remarks this evening brief, especially in light of staff's very thorough report. Just a little bit of background. Federal Realty, we're a retail-based REIT, have over 100 properties nationwide that we operate, lease, and manage. We've always considered the South Bay retail market to be an attractive place to conduct business, and finally had the opportunity to invest here when Plaza El Segundo was purchased in 2011. And a few years after that, we completed the Point Lifestyle Center. And then we're on the overall Plaza El Segundo's aerial, right? Phase 1A, 1B.
Correct.
Yeah, so the purpose of this slide is really to show that these properties in effect operate as 4 distinct areas. The 38.5 acre Phase 1A, which consists of Plaza El Segundo, which has the largest net leasable area, most retail square footage. The Works, which is off to the east on Allied Way, and the Collection, which is south of Park Place. And then finally, the newest portion, Phase 1B, which is the Point, which is the property bordering Rosecrans. If we can move to the third slide. Plaza, this is a grocery anchored shopping center with a number of other complementary large format retailers, Whole Foods, Best Buy, Dick's, providing everyday needs like the grocery, occasional needs, sporting goods. It's a relatively stable roster of tenants. That said, our goal is always to strengthen an already solid property. We recently replaced a tenant with Nordstrom Rack here that you see in the image, which has much stronger sales, and took out non-sales tax providing bank pad with the Ulta that you see here also in the image. Okay, moving on to the next slide, Jeff, if you will. The Works was a portion of the center that was looking a little bit tired. We recently renovated that, and we're in the process of re-tenanting that when COVID hit. We modernized the aesthetic here, cleared out years of clutter, introduced some street trees, some lush plantings. And this $10 million renovation and re-tenanting plan just hasn't gained any traction in the retail market, partially hampered by its size and location. But as mentioned earlier, Federal is a retail-focused REIT. If we felt that there was opportunity to turn this into a thriving retail center with new tenants, we'd be doing so. We just aren't seeing the market current for it and not finding the tenants to backfill some of these vacancies. And with that, I'm gonna let you take over the balance of the presentation, Jeff.
Okay, thank you. And thank you for taking the time tonight. I think it's really important to note, and Mayor Boyles, I believe you and I had a conversation roughly 3 years ago in Chambers when we were there for an approval for massage use in the zone, where we talked about the changes in retail and how challenging retail was becoming. And I think it's very important to understand that what's happening in retail was happening long before COVID hit. COVID is effectively just a can of gasoline on top of an already burning fire. And this slide really shows you, this is the Collection roster of tenants. BB had filed Chapter 11 roughly 2 years ago and left just completely in the middle of the night. MAC has moved on. Lululemon was going to leave the area. We instead moved them to the Point to keep them within the city of El Segundo. BCBG during COVID filed bankruptcy for the second time and has closed all stores. J. Crew filed bankruptcy. Anthropology is going to be closing here. So it's been a rather challenging environment. And if you even go to the Point, you'll see that there's been a little bit more vacancy there post-COVID than certainly we would have liked or expected, which includes Planet Blue closing all their stores, Lucky Brand filing Chapter 11, although they're staying open, Prana closing all their U.S. stores, and Lou and Gray, which is a subsidiary of Ascena, which also owns Ann Taylor Loft, filing Chapter 11 and closing a number of their stores. So it's been an evolution, certainly not the most fun I've ever had, and certainly challenging, but there is a kind of a silver lining to all of this, which is there are alternatives. Service uses continue to remain relatively Amazon-proof and give us a number of different ways to combat the contracting national market. Consumer preferences and tastes continue to go for experiences where the point will be very solid long-term, and also for convenience where Plaza El Segundo really plays a very important role. So it's not all doom and gloom. There are alternatives. So we came across the concept of changing the collection originally, that's what started this entire process, into an office use, which would put much needed bodies on property on a daily basis and reuse the existing improvements a little bit more efficiently. We were able to sign a lease with House Laboratories, that is the cosmetics firm founded by Lady Gaga. We have subsequently signed a second use for building C1, which is currently anthropology. They'll be taking over when anthropology closes on December 9th. And ultimately, we would like to change building C2 to office as well, but that puts us over the cap right now, the limit of 20%. To put it in context, building C2 currently houses J. Crew, who will be closing January 31st, H&M, who will be closing January 31st, Banana Republic, who would like to close when possible. Both J. Crew and Banana Republic ideally would like to stay within the market. We're working with them to try to do that. And BCBG, that is bankrupt and literally left us a store full of clothes. So it really is a challenge for us, but we think this opportunity to pivot to office in this part of the project and to bring in more services will ultimately make Plaza El Segundo somewhat recession-proof and somewhat Amazon-proof. This is some of the work we've already done out at Plaza El Segundo. This is the House Designs or House Laboratories. You can see we've not only completely reused the interior to a much more user-friendly layout. We did not change the building envelopes at all. We did add these parklets that you'll see in the upper right-hand corner by simply decking over the existing parking lot, which creates some indoor-outdoor space opportunities for these users. And then this is a little bit of a rendering of what we would expect the building that currently houses H&M and Banana Republic to look like, and put some sort of context. So we appreciate the consideration and are happy to answer any questions you might have.
Okay, we're going to go to the chamber for to continue the public input, see if there's anyone there, and then we're going to close the public hearing, and then we'll go to council discussion just as a matter of order. So, Madam Deputy City Clerk Schilling, is there anyone in chamber wishing to speak regarding the public hearing? Mona, did you say no? Sorry, we couldn't hear you.
Correct. No, there is not.
Okay, thank you. And have you received any written public comments?
We have not.
Okay, thank you. All right, do I have, would someone like to make a motion to close the public hearing?
Nichols, so moved.
Thank you, sir.
Giroux, second.
Okay, we're good there. Thank you, sir. All right, Madam Clerk, would you please take a voice vote?
Sure. Councilmember Giroux.
Yes.
Councilmember Nichol.
Aye.
Councilmember Perstuck.
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Pimentel.
Yes.
Mayor Boyles.
Yes.
Okay, you're cool.
Okay, we're gonna thank you. We're gonna have council discussion, and then if we move forward, we'll have the city attorney read the resolution by title only. So I'll just open it up to my colleagues. Carol? Yeah.
So Councilman Persick, I just had a question earlier. The city staff mentioned that to reverse this, we'd have to get joint agreement from both the council and the property owners to reverse this decision. Would it be wise for us to put a time frame on this decision and then reassess it like in 20 years, 10 years, so that we can, are we okay with just collaborating with the property owners going forward if we decide we want to change this decision.
Thank you, Councilor Perstock. I have a comment on that, but Scott, I saw you raise your hand. Go ahead, please.
My comment to Councilmember Perstock's statement was, I think the better question to ask is, in regards to rental rates, do offices drive higher rental rates than retail stores, or do retail stores drive higher rents? Because that will ultimately dictate kind of the direction of the center long term for the property owner with the potential entitlements that are before us tonight.
Yeah, maybe we could ask the applicant, Mr. Kreshek, others to address that. I would just want to make one point, which is I just want to see these guys succeed. We've got a big REIT interest with a big investment in El Segundo. And as you heard one of them say, they're in the business of retail. They're a retail REIT. That's their model. They can't make it work. I mean, Councilor Giroux knows probably better than any of us in his business how tough it is for retail right now. It's not lost on me that just 3 years ago we had this conversation. And to your point, Jeff, things were already heading that direction before COVID hit.
Right.
This is inevitable. And so I would just like to see them succeed. And I don't think we can shoehorn anything right now. It's like their business model either works with some adjustments that we accommodate or it doesn't. And I think long term, who knows what 10 or 20 years will hold from now and what retail is going to look like. But I absolutely support giving these guys the allowance to go to that 40%, I think it's 40% threshold in both the Point and the Plaza. So that's what I feel about it. Yeah, Councilor Giroux.
Yeah, I mean, I think one of the things with COVID, and I think in everybody's business is everybody's taking a look at their model right now and saying, okay, am I set up to be able to weather this, and then what do I do afterwards? Because whatever comes afterwards is going to be different. As Mayor Boyles mentioned, I'm in the retail world, so I understand what's going on all too well. But here's, I guess, I want to take a little bit different stance on this right now. To you guys, let's just say, sake of argument, you could redo this thing however you wanted right now. There's no variances. There's nothing keeping anything out. What would be the way you would set it up? I mean, I look at the way you have the Plaza with Home Goods and Dick's and Nordstrom Rack and Container Store and Alta. That to me is set up for now and going forward. But my real question is, in order for a development like that, of that magnitude to survive, you have to drive traffic or create traffic within there. Not to mention the fact that on the other side of Rosecrans, you got Manhattan Village Mall ready to open up with a bunch of stores, a bunch of restaurants, and the whole 9 yards again. So there's a lot of competition there. So what would you do if you had to do it right now over again? What would you change?
Armchair quarterbacking is always easy. If that were a blank piece of, blank slate and I could do anything I wanted with it, yes, it would certainly be a much more dense mixed use project. We've seen tremendous success as a company with projects like Santana Row in San Jose, where when you have that mix of office, residential, hotel, and the right amount of retail, all the pieces work much better together. 20 years ago when this was conceived, it was hard to sort of see we'd end up where we are today, where retailers would be taking smaller footprints. There'd be fewer retailers out there. So I can't really fault the developer for the plan, but if we were doing it with a blank slate, it would be a dense mixed use project in my mind. And Councilmember Nickel, to answer your question about rental rates, rates change all the time. I personally spent a significant amount of time trying to re-tenant the collection with retailers. And what we found in this particular case was that the office rents today exceeded the retail rents that we could generate. And more importantly, we had no faith that the retailers we would be putting in at whatever rental rates had longevity, because the types of retailers that we really would have put in the collection or that originally were in the collection really are now more drawn to a full environment like the Point. So it's about really reorganizing the pieces. The collection worked when the Point didn't exist. But with the Point, now it sort of makes the collection, for lack of a better term, a piece without a story. The Plaza is very clear messaging. It's somewhat of a value proposition, a big box proposition. The collection was the lifestyle piece, which has now been kind of the game has been upped with the point. And, you know, the works, we really see that as a destination services play. We are getting some traction. We're working on several deals right now, but they are in the services category. That was designed to be sort of the anti-lifestyle center, if you will, the edgy project that just didn't materialize. Again, to Councilmember Giroux, to your point, you wouldn't build the works the way it is today. You wouldn't build that as a small unanchored shop retail building.
Okay, but you dodged that. What would you build it as?
I would build the entire thing as a mixed use project.
Okay, so you're talking more, you know, you're building in clientele for the retail and restaurants that are there.
Absolutely.
So you'd be talking about a mixed use residential. Gotcha.
Yeah.
And obviously I know this is, you know, hasn't been part of, is there, other than our current ordinances and the way we have things set up, is there anything in there that would, even if we allowed it to be residential, what is keeping us remediations from actually doing that? Is there anything from that standpoint? Is it even buildable? Is it even in the cards?
No. I wish I could tell you.
No.
Yeah, Stuart.
It's
because of Chevron.
These are deed restricted properties. The soil is extremely contaminated. You know, and to sort of add a little more detail to Jeff's comments about added density and what would we do if there were no rules. You know, we currently, the development agreement is tied to an approved EIR with strict vehicle limits, and quickly we start to bump up against those vehicle thresholds with any sort of added density. You know, that doesn't mean that longer term the play here is to look at some of these opportunities and higher density, but it does involve a completely new environmental process and certification, which, you know, as you know, takes years.
Gotcha. Thank you.
Mayor Pro Tem, anything on your end?
You know, I'm somewhat curious as to Councilmember Pierstick's ideas. I think that, you know, if you went around the room, there's probably not a person here that doesn't want to see this succeed and succeed well and set conditions that allow it to succeed. That said, for the future, because the future does have our single biggest piece of infrastructure project is going right next to there. And with the change to Raytheon to the north and what those entitlements look like in phase 1 and phase 2 there, and the change of the interchange around the railroad tracks and some of the developments there, is there a way, and this may be a question for the city attorney, that we do the proverbial dismiss without prejudice? So we reserve some sort of right and flexibility as a city to make changes to this development agreement without being constrained to something that is extraordinarily to our disadvantage in the future. So that's the question I have. I know that Councilmember Pierstick touched on it a bit. Maybe it's a sundown provision. Maybe it's a different methodology here. But I guess to make sure everyone's clear, I want this to succeed, and I am in favor of the concept here. But knowing what is going to happen right there in 10 years, the conditions on the ground may change. So, City Attorney, can you enlighten the benighted Mayor Pro Tem?
Yes, if the council wanted to have a sunset provision in it, that is at some point in the future, have it revert back to the numbers that it's at currently as far as the maximum non-sales tax generating, you could put that in. I suspect the developer would want to weigh in on that because that will tie their hands, practically speaking, as far as what they can do. For instance, if you put a 2 or 3 year sunset on that, that may dramatically hamper their ability to utilize that space. But yes, in theory, we could put in a provision to sunset this change.
Would you like us?
Do we know what the length of the development agreement is now? How long is the agreement? What's the agreement duration now? Does it have a closeout date?
It does. And
if I may, the term of the agreement currently is 20 years.
I'm sorry, Paul, and from what date? I'm having a little technical problem. I was trying to call up the underlying agreement. 20 years from what date?
Yeah, I'm reading directly from the development agreement, the section regarding the term, and it says this agreement shall be in effect for a period of 20 years from the effective date of the enabling ordinance.
So, okay, so then we're going an additional 20 years from today. So, yes, so with that, we could, again, if there was council consensus, we could put a sunset on this time frame. And
excuse me, this is Lisa Kranitz, attorney for federal. The second sentence, Mark, is there's a 5-year extension that either party can exercise by written notice. So it's really 25 years.
Okay. And again, I apologize. I have a technical problem going on here with my computer.
Council Member Giroux, did you have a point?
Yeah, actually, I'm going to be honest here. I don't actually think you're going far enough. I think you need a bigger variation than the 40% you're asking for. And I'm saying this based on the fact that I study this every day. This is my world outside of this particular job, and retail is not coming back that way. It's smaller store footprints. There's tremendous competition just in that area. I think the area where the works is dead. I don't think there's it only because no matter what great concept you can come up with, there's not enough shoppers to come in to spread it around enough in order for it to become a viable option. So I'm in favor of this. I'm not in favor of a sunset because I just don't believe that it's going to be necessary. I don't think you'll ever revert back to a huge shopping mall in that location when there's one just south of it personally. So if that's going to handcuff you, I'm not as in favor of that. But I'm in favor of what you're asking for.
Thank you, Councilmember Giroux. Okay, yeah, Councilmember Nickel.
Sorry, I'm in total favor of this. I think that the 25 years is a sunset period that's in there. I think that, giving this property owner some freedom to try to make this work is what we need to do. I remember originally when the point was entitled, there was some discussion on the limit of the percentage that can be sports and athletics, for gyms or Soul Cycle, things like that. And that space was gobbled up immediately. In this current application, is anything chiseled out for that? Are we expanding that allowability? I'm just thinking, here we are, this is before us. Should we chisel out options for you so that, as we move forward, you don't have to come back and do this again?
So,
Sam.
Yeah, Councilman Nickel, you're remembering the way the original development agreement was with the Plaza. It was very specific square footage limitations on retail, athletics, sports activity. It was very specific down to the square footage. A few years ago, we removed that requirement and made it into sales generating and non-sales generating to give them more flexibility.
Perfect. Thank you, Sam. But Mr. Mayor, I am in full support of this 40/60 concept on both properties. We have to give Federal Realty the opportunity to try to succeed here. And to Councilmember Giroux's statement, if 2 years from now, Federal Realty is still in the position they're in today, then I suspect they will be coming before us again to pitch a new concept or a new way to adapt to the changing world. Thank you.
All right, thank you, sir. Councilmember Persick.
Yes, I'm also in support. I'm just surprised that it's only a 25-year. That seems quite low. I mean, short time frame, but I'm definitely in support of it.
Okay. All right, we have consensus. Any final thoughts from council members before I have the city attorney read the resolution? Seeing none, Mr. Hensley.
Yes, Mayor and Council. First is a resolution, and this is for action this evening. It's a resolution approving environmental assessment number EA 1279 and amendments to the conditions of approval for the Plaza El Segundo development project. Is ready for a first and second and a vote.
Okay, would someone like to make a motion to adopt the resolution?
Giroux, so moved. Go ahead.
Okay, I heard
Nickel,
Giroux
second.
for the first, Nickel for the second. Thank you, Madam Clerk.
Councilmember Giroux,
Yes.
Councilmember Nickel,
Aye.
Councilmember Perstuck,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Pimentel,
Yes.
Mayor Boyles.
Yes.
Okay, the resolution passed 5-0.
Okay, City Attorney will read the ordinance by title only.
Yes, Mayor and Council, this is the ordinance which will be for potential introduction tonight if it's introduced, and it will be brought back on at the Council's December 1st meeting for a potential vote. So with that, an ordinance approving development agreement number DA 20-01, 8th Amendment to Development Agreement number DA 03-01, and an amendment to the conditions of approval for the Plaza El Segundo and the Point development is ready for introduction.
Okay, who would like to introduce the ordinance? Anyone?
I'll introduce.
Thank you,
Well,
Councilman Nickel.
So again, this will be brought back at the December 1 council meeting for a potential adoption.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Kreshik.
Thank you very much. We appreciate
Yeah.
it.
Thank you for being here. Thank you both, yeah.
Appreciate it.
Thank you all, I should say. All right, we're moving on to reports. City Clerk.
No report this evening.
Okay, thank you. City Treasurer. Did I see Matt on or anyone from his office? No? Okay. Councilor Giroux.
Yes, so I had a LAWA advisory committee meeting last Thursday. So I want to share a little bit of that with all of you and really with everyone in the city, because this is a gigantic project. And the LAWA PR machine was in full force, had all the gears turning during this meeting. They're very good at it, but there's a couple of things I think everybody needs to kind of understand on this. Is that number one, you're looking at 2 brand new concourses. You're looking at a net increase, they call it, in gates of about 3 to 12, they say, but that really kind of depends on the airplanes that they're going to accommodate for that. But the important thing is that construction set to go at the end of 2021, so say 12 months from now, and continue till 2028. So the effect on El Segundo is huge from that, because just from the construction piece alone, that's something to take a look at. The other thing is that you're looking at a potential capacity or goal, if you would, of 127 million passengers per year by 2045. Considering that, I believe last year, Mayor Boyles, correct me if I'm wrong, I think it was about 88 million that they had put through. So when you consider that increase, that is a 50% increase of the actual number of percentage increase of passengers coming in. All of this is going to have a profound effect on us. So they are going to have some community outreach, I think town hall situation. I think December 1st is one of them. And I urge all of you to please take a look at it so you're informed as residents as well, so that you'll know exactly what's going on and then what we're trying to do to help support the city and its residents. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Giroux. Thanks for your advocacy with LAWA. Appreciate it. Councilmember Nickel.
Nothing to report tonight, Mr. Mayor. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Councilmember Perstuck.
Yeah, just some quick, as you know, the Candy Cane Lane was canceled as well as the parade, but the chamber is partnering with the Parks and Recs and the Kiwanis and the Rotary and the Women's Club, and they're trying to reimage the parade. So be on the lookout. Information will be coming out soon about what that will look like. We want to ensure that our residents have the best holiday season ever. Thank you.
Wow, is that Councilmember Perstuck might actually still happen then? Is that what you're saying, or?
Well, it's going to be basically like an inverted parade. So instead of the parade moving along, the cars will move along and the parade will be stationary. So we're hoping to use the area that we used for the Halloween trick or treat. We are going to invite clubs and churches and schools to create floats as similar to what they do for the high school homecoming parade. And those floats will be stationary, and then cars will drive past, and Chevron's participating as well. And they will be there with their big fire truck, handing out candy canes and clips and magnet clips. So be on the lookout for information.
Cool.
We really want to ensure that we're just reimagining it. We're not canceling it.
Is it still the first week? Are they still targeting the first week of December as usual?
Yeah, it's going to be that Sunday, December 13th.
Second, Tracy's saying no. Okay, second week, I guess then. Okay.
I think it's December. I want to say, hold on, let me look. I believe it's December 13th.
Okay, great. It's good to know. I guess I assumed that was off. That's great. Thank you. Mayor Pro Tem.
Someone just texted me 12:20.
12:20. Okay. 12:20. You heard it here. Okay.
All right.
That's okay. Thanks.
Mr. Mayor, today was the big celebration of the South Bay Fiber Ring coming into effect. That is one of those subtle infrastructure big deals that make a difference to our community. That is enabled by a very novel look at metro funding, because it's built on the auspice that we are, instead of commuting by car, commuting by computer, and metro funding was made available to that. So lest all of county, state, and local governments being thought of as being stuck in 1954, that was a very novel use of those funds, and I think is going to make a very big long-term difference, have a long-term impact on the way that people are able to work remotely in the South Bay region, and the city governments in particular are able to work as they're all participate in it. But secondly, I want to go with the thank you and reiteration of what Councilmember Giroux said. I mean, the airport's timing of going over the holidays, seemingly to escape some notice, it is a very big deal. 128 million passengers per year is every single person in England and every single person in France coming to visit El Segundo every year. And make no mistake that this expansion with larger planes using bigger gates are louder, and it is happening on our backs. And I think it's a very important thing that Councilmember Giroux has done. And I think that we and the residents need to know that we are focused on this as a priority for it. That's all. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. And yeah, Lance, actually, a few years ago when SCAG, Southern California Association of Government, first came out with their forecast, they had it at 138 million. And we took it upon ourselves to sue SCAG at that point in time, and then worked with LAWA. We continue to do so. I will ask Mr. Mitnick to give an overview of what he can discuss in terms of what we are doing with, and not against necessarily, but to counter LAWA's attempt to add Concourse Zero and Terminal 9. So Scott, if you could please give an overview to the public on that. And yeah, the fiber ring was great, and you nailed it, Mayor Pro Tem. It's huge from an infrastructure standpoint, thanks to City of Inglewood and Mayor Butts, who is the chair of Metro, to help make that happen and get the funds. And Assemblymember Mayor Succi was super instrumental as well. So it's great. It's a great project. And that's all I have for this evening. Scott, if you could please touch on what we are doing to counter LAWA's growth efforts. And then when it comes to memorial, I have a short memorial that's not on the agenda that I'd like to read, please.
Hey, Mr. Mayor, members of the council, I'll be happy to give an update on LAWA, and if it's okay, then I'll do the city manager follow-up and talk about the next council meeting. So, Mr. Mayor, members of the council, as some of you have indicated, there's a lot going on with LAWA. Their draft EIR for the expansion it's on the street, and the LAWA public relations machine is busy working, and they deserve credit for that because they are getting the word out. So there's been a lot of coverage on it. Hey, and by the way, just for the residents, the viewers, people watching, go to the city's website, go to the El Segundo City website, and there's information about what's going on, and you can click on and go right to the LAWA site that has a deck which will walk you through the proposed EIR. It's very involved and complicated. It will be one of the largest construction projects in the entire state of California. We're talking, billions of dollars over an 8-year plus period. And whether or not the airport needs to expand, that's another issue. But as the municipality here, and as you heard from your council members, the organization's job is to understand the impacts, articulate our concerns, be on the record, and we are working on that. Because of the leadership of this council and you're pushing, a letter was sent to LAWA asking for more time for public comments, and that was we did get an additional 2 months. We were hoping for more. The initial deadline was in the middle of December. It's been pushed to the middle of February. If our residents have concerns, let us know. Call the city manager's office. We will help you. You can go to our website too, but just call us. Ask for Barbara Voss or myself. We will help you make sure you can get your concerns on the record. The city is preparing a comprehensive letter. We are using our outside legal counsel, and we have outside planning and transportation experts going through the draft EIR very thoroughly. I've been in a number of meetings with them, and our outside lobbyist consultant, Kobe King, is helping with that review. We also have a number of our city departments going through the document, whether it's our public works staff, our planning staff, our city attorney's office, and so on. In that draft EIR, and I'm sorry if I'm sounding bureaucratic or very
Scott, can you define for the audience EIR? Your typical resident constituent's not going to understand the environmental impact report process. Just a quick overview.
Yeah, sure. So when a big development's going to take place, they have to go through an involved environmental impact study and report. And right now they're at the draft EIR stage. And this is where you fully disclose what the project is, different scenarios, and the impacts. And the public and other local governments are able to comment on that. And that's what we are doing. So again, for the community, just go to the city's website. We are putting together updates. We're happy to answer calls, and we are in front of LAWA. And I know there's a reporter with the Herald who's very much interested in this topic. Hopefully he's watching right now. And that newspaper has indicated they will provide stories to help get the word out to the community. So the impacts have to deal with air quality, noise, traffic. Also during construction, there will be impacts in El Segundo. We will do a good job articulating those impacts so the community is aware. Sorry for the long-winded answer, but we're doing a lot right now. We will over the next few months.
Scott, just a couple more, or at least one more question.
Sure.
Can you and Mark provide a little bit of context in terms of what we can and cannot do? What are our options, as much as you can go into in detail?
Well, what we can do is make it clear to the airport and other outside agencies what the impacts are on us. If it's interesting, if you read through that document and if you listen to what the airport is saying with their public relations folks and their pieces they put out, they focus on all the benefits. And yes, they're going to make the airport better. They're going to make it easier to move around. But what they're not saying as openly as we would like are the negative impacts on the adjacent communities. And there are significant impacts. A number of the impacts cannot be mitigated. They say that, and legally they're allowed to do that. So what we can do is make our concerns known. What we can't do is stop the expansion. We can't shut down the airport. The airport's very important in El Segundo. It provides a lot of jobs. It's important to our economy, but our job is to make sure there's a good balance between our quality of life and the airport's need to be viable and to accommodate growth. It's a very delicate balancing act. And at some point, that airport will hit its peak, that it can't accommodate anymore.
And
Mark, maybe Mark can tell you.
As part of this process,
Mark, could you touch on the legal standpoint, please?
Well, as part of this process is we're reviewing and having consultants review the noise and air quality and traffic and those impacts. We'll be preparing written documentation of these impacts and meeting with the airport, the point of which is to attempt to get them to mitigate those impacts to a point where it's acceptable or more acceptable to the community of El Segundo. If we're unable to reach an understanding with Los Angeles World Airport on those points, then the city can file a lawsuit challenging it. And while ultimately you can't stop a project permanently, it can slow it down, and a court can intervene and determine whether or not the analysis provided by LAWA is adequate, or whether it needs to be redone, whether there's additional mitigation measures that are necessary. And so it can be somewhat of an iterative process to see if we can get to a point where there are acceptable impacts or measures put in place to mitigate the impacts. So it can be a quite lengthy process. It can take years. Again, there's at the moment the goal is to analyze all of the impacts, have conversations with LAWA, and determine whether or not we can reach an acceptable understanding as to how to mitigate those.
Thanks, Mark. And I just want to reiterate a couple points that we've said before. One is that we're the only city that opposes this project. Inglewood, Culver City, and a part of Westchester, RSAC, which was a strong lobbying group all the way back from former late Mike Gordon and others in 2006 with a master settlement. RSAC conceded as well. We were the only one that did not concede and give them the ability to do this project 2 years ago when they first came to us. There's also support from the South Bay City Council of Governments. I've said that before. The board supports advocating for restricting the growth of that airport. I say that broadly, kind of generically, but that's the general sentiment. And there's also support. I just got off the phone with the president of Ontario Airport 2 days ago, Alan Wapner, who I serve on SCAG with. And Ontario would like to see regionalization a real thing. And the airport doesn't want to do that, and the airlines don't want to do it because it's not as cost effective for them to do that. There's certainly economies of scale operating out of LAWA, but we're going to do everything we can to restrict the growth out of that airport, and we have very few levers to do so. That's all I had on that front. Is there anything else council members want to add? LAWA's an important topic.
I just want to kind of put one quick thing into context. You know, one of the narratives that's being thrown out by LAWA is that, well, the passenger expansion was going to happen anyway. So we're really putting this project together in order to help, mitigate that. You don't throw $6 billion into a project, which is what they told us this was going to cost, unless you're expecting to make a minimum of $12 billion when all is said and done. So, I understand they want to do what they want to do, but the narrative is that this is in response to the increase, and really what it's doing is allowing it to happen.
Great point. That was our argument with LAMP, is that once you improve ground transport, you're actually removing one of the capacity constraints and allowing more people to travel through that airport. So anyway, I think it's clear the whole council feels passionately about this, strongly about this topic. Thank you. I'm going to if there's nothing further, I'll turn it back to the city attorney. Mark, because I skipped over you, my apologies.
Oh, certainly. And if I will just briefly, while the Chief Donovan was speaking earlier, the Los Angeles County came out with some modified or announcement of what its modified order is going to be issued and what it says. And I'll just on a few key points as they relate to the city of El Segundo, and this will be effective on Friday. This first point is going to need some clarification, and they're going to limit outdoor restaurants, breweries, and wineries to 50% of maximum capacity. I'm not certain what that means from the context of right now. The capacity is based upon being able to maintain social distance requirements as the county has set them out. And so there'll have to be some clarification of what that means as to whether they're going to 12 feet or what exactly that means. But we'll have to get clarification on that. If that is just for outdoor dining as it existed prior to this, they went before these orders. They already had a socially distance, so that may be just a meaningless restriction they're putting out there. Now, the other ones are that the restaurants, breweries, and wineries will not be able to operate between 10 p.m. and 6 a.m. Outdoor gatherings will be limited to 15 people maximum, and they have to be from no more than 3 households. If the county sees a 5-day average of 4,000 or more cases or hospitalizations of 1,750 per day, again, those are a 5-day average, then the outdoor and indoor dining in restaurants and breweries will be closed except for pickup and delivery. And if these averages go to 4,500 a day or 2,000 per day, that's 4,500 cases per day or 2,000 hospitalizations, then we will back in the safer at home order with essential services and workers only, and there will be a curfew on all non-essential activities between 10 p.m. and 6 a.m. So that was what got released at the beginning of this meeting. I don't know, Chief, you want to add anything to that?
No, thank you. We're going to study this a little bit more and dive into it tomorrow, contacting LA County Public Health. What typically is interesting is that the county is notorious for putting out these press releases, and then we have to wait until the LA County Public Health officer order gets amended, and we always follow that health office order. So we really will wait to see that amended health officer's order. We'll dive into that. We'll provide some more direction to the community and to this council with any changes that we may need to instill. And if I could, sir, to Councilmember Pimentel, as it related to the surge capacity, and my apologies, I should have known this. The lines do parallel, because what that provides is, as more people go into hospitals have the ability to surge up. And by way of example, when we last time had spikes in the hospitals, many of the hospitals opened up wings that normally don't use for COVID patients. And so we're able to, in essence, create more hospital bed availability. And therefore, those lines would parallel. The County of Los Angeles has tremendous surge capacity, upwards of, I've heard, as many as 4,000 bed hospital bed availability or more going forward beyond what we've got now. So those, I should have had a little bit more definition for you, but those red lines that showed hospital availability and the number of patients are in essence in parallel, because hospitals are able to provide more space for COVID patients. That makes sense.
Thank you. Yes, thank you very much.
All right, thank you, City Attorney. Thank you, Chief. Quick memorial. I just want to point out that November 17th, same day, 1935, was the day that El Segundo police officer Robert C. Grow lost his life. He was a motorcycle officer. He was 42 years old, and he was conducting a follow-up investigation to a traffic collision on Sepulveda, now PCH, and another vehicle crashed against a car, and he died died against the scene, and they suspect that the driver was intoxicated, and he was survived by his wife. So there's a plaque on the wall next to the upstairs elevator at, I believe, in the police department here at Civic Plaza. So if you're there, please pay your respects. And that's all I have this evening. We are adjourned. Thank you.